Do you know that I met my husband actually at a hardware store?
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. So I had just moved to a new neighborhood in a new city, and I didn't know anyone there. And of course, I needed to go to the hardware store to buy some things for my new apartment. And this very nice guy worked there, and he helped me out. He took things off of high shelves, and he was all smiley, and I was all smiley, and we were having a nice conversation. So I'll wait for you outside if you want to continue our conversation. When I came out, he was still there and I had all these bags. He helped me into a cab. It was really nice. And, he asked for my number and I didn't know anybody really in the town. So I said, why don't I give this guy my number and I'll take his and it'll be good. At least I'll know somebody here.
So that's what we hear when you wear the ACE logo and you're traveling or wherever you're at. People like always say 39 out of the 40 stories are heartwarming. When they talk about an ACE store, they say, well, that's my ACE hardware store. They use the word my. When you talk about great retailers like Walmart, it's not my Walmart. But when it's a hardware store, they have this connection that's really unique. And they call, well, my hardware store. Let me tell you about my hardware store. We love that.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Workplace Weirdness, the non-HR HR podcast where we dive into the strangest office situations and most awkward workplace dramas. I'm your host, Maya Kadar-Kowalski, and I'm a former chief culture officer and head of people. And I've seen and heard it all, so truly no judgments. So let's get real and explore the cringy, confusing, and chaotic side of office life. Today, we're discussing AI reshaping the workplace, performance review blindsides, and what happens when you merge teams but not cultures. I'm joined today by Kane Calamari. Kane is the CHRO and Senior Vice President of ACE Hardware. He's been there for over 15 years and was previously ACE's VP of Retail Operations and New Business. Kane previously worked at companies like Bosch and DDB Advertising in Chicago. Kane, I'm so happy to have you here. I heard you have a very interesting way of starting job interviews. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
So when I interview somebody or a new hire orientation on day one, I go out of my way to let people know, like, just so you know, you're joining a company, been around a long time, been blessed with a lot of success, but we're a company that should be failing. So you just joined or you're thinking about joining a company that's failing. And then I unpack that for them. I let them know, like, well, here's the deal. Like, you think about it, like independent retail, which is what Ace Hardware is, a lot of independent hardware stores all across the country. Independent retail over the last 30 years has been slaughtered. I mean, and I use that term, and people always kind of back off, like, oh, he said slaughtered. What does he mean? Well, what I mean is the truth. Independent pharmacies, independent grocery stores, independent shoe stores, independent everything has been slaughtered over the last 30 years. And Ace Hardware has been blessed with success, even though we should be failing. I tell them the stat. We're a big company. We're at retail in 65 countries. We do about $23 billion in business, and people are always like, "Wow, 23 billion. That's a lot," and it is. But if you take Home Depot, Walmart, Lowe's, Menards, Costco, and Target, and you add up those folks, it's $1.5 trillion in sales. That's who we're fighting. So little old Ace Hardware, which really isn't little, is battling these behemoths who are really, really good at what they do. And so our CEO and myself tell folks, wake up with a chip on your shoulder. We're swimming upstream. We're one of the last independent categories that still has a chance to succeed, and we're having fun doing it.
You sort of explained it to me. I thought that all these stores were franchised, but they're not franchised, are they?
No, the franchise is what we call the F word at Ace Hardware, which everybody loves when I say that. We're a cooperative, which is it's a governance model. Co-ops always kind of freak people out. What's a co-op? And they always think farm and ag because there's a lot of co-ops in the farm and ag sector. But basically, we've got 5,300 stores in the domestic United States, and they're owned by 2,600 families. That could be it could be a single person or a couple or a family, but we have 2,600 shareholders that own the 5,300 stores, and they own the company. So we're not public, we're not private equity. I don't own any shares. The CEO doesn't own any shares. It's owned by the people that own the stores. So in my town of Libertyville, Illinois, the Leskowski family, been in the Ace Harbor business for decades. They own the stores up in my neck of the woods, but they also own the companies. When you have the family or the couple that they live in that town, they go to church in that town, they shop at the grocery store in that town, they go to the Little League baseball games, and they own that store. Who's going to give you better customer service? I mean, they live in the town. So that's their brand. That's their family's brand. So we find that having that local ownership really, really helps us do a great job with customer service.
You as the CHRO of ACE, though, do you oversee, so you're not overseeing everybody in every store, right? But can you tell me a little bit about what your job entails, I guess?
Yeah, that's a really good question because the way it works is we have there's 17,000 corporate employees between distribution centers, corporate, the field. So there's 17,000 that are W-2 back to us, including our subsidiaries. In the stores, there's about, we call them red vested heroes. There's about 100,000 red vested heroes in the stores. So we don't have direct oversight to those folks. They report up through the families that own the stores. We support them with programs on people and training, but they obviously report through the families that own the stores. So it's kind of a we got two things we have to think about, like CHRO, our HR team dealing with our team, but then what can we do to support? What programs, processes, engagement surveys can we provide to our retailers that they might want to use in their stores? So we do a little bit of both.
So you've worked for many years at ACE, but not always in the HR capacity. So how did you feel when the CEO told you he wanted you to move from head of retail sales to HR?
Yeah, that was an interesting time because retail operations and new business was my role, and that's working with the field staff, opening new stores, and really getting close to the owners, the retailers. But the CEO came to me and asked me. He said, I'd like you to think about taking over the HR role at Ace Hardware." And so we spent about 6 months talking about it, and we basically, I think his mindset was, we really need to push hard on HR because developing people, you think about, we talked about retention, we talked about succession planning, we talked about leadership development. And he said, I need more of all that. And he goes, I think you can lead that and push that forward. So I jumped into HR about 12 years ago and haven't looked back since.
Have there been any mistakes that you've made in your earlier career that you sort of learned from, and you can kind of, share your wisdom with us about? I'd love to know if you ever had those moments where you learned something that was meaningful that you'd like to share with our audience.
One of the things, I'm a bit type A. That's just I get up and I talk too much. I don't listen enough. And then that's, I'm going to coach myself right to my grave and try and get better. Probably not going to happen. But what I learned early on, I had a leader pull me aside and coach me really hard on this in a good way and said, like, you can't have the answer to every question. And by the way, when you try to answer a question when you don't have the answer, it's a really, really bad idea. Like when we go out in front of our retailers, there's 30 people in the room, and I'm on the HR team. I'm not going to know a lot about what's going on at the distribution center. They ask a lot of questions. I won't have all the answers. So now it's etched in my brain. We're watching somebody in front of a group of people trying to answer a question when they don't have the answer. It's just awful.
Excruciating, right? They're like digging themselves deeper and deeper into a
Yeah,
hole, right?
exactly. It's like when the whole, I always say, put the shovel down, put it down. And by the way, I think you show humility when somebody asks you a question. You don't need to go, I have no idea what that is. I'm going to get back to you with the answer. What's your name? Where are you from? I'll follow up with you tomorrow. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Like, I had to learn that because, gosh darn it, when I was there, Kane was going to have the answer to everything. And it's a terrible strategy. So I try to, when I see it happen, I pull people aside. I do what the gentleman did 25 years ago to
Mhm.
me and say, like, stop doing that.
Right,
It sends a real great message of humility when you say, I have no idea what that answer is. You're
right.
human. Oh, because corporate's supposed to know all the answers? No, we're
And
not.
increases the trust because if you're BSing through an answer, that kind of lowers people's trust in you. There's an important piece of that. It's the follow through. If you take the person's name down and you don't follow through, then you've lost them again. But if
Correct.
you do follow through, you gain a lot, I think, in the social capital as far as doing, that follow through. And oh, he really did hear me. He really did follow through and he gave me an answer eventually, even if it took you a couple of days to find that out. So let's move on to my favorite question, which is what is your weirdest workplace moment?
There's too many here. So so my, probably the weirdest thing for me, that kind of one of those moments in your career where you kind of check yourself of like, holy cow, I can't believe this happened. We had a leadership meeting about 10 or 12 years ago. It was in Orlando. 600 people in the room, a 2-day conference, kind of the traditional thing. And I was part of the team that put together the speakers, a couple keynote speakers and some corporate speakers. And so we had, I was tagged with this one for sure. This was definitely Kane's call. We chose a futurist, kind of an economist slash futurist, which is, we thought that'd be a neat little thing and great, looked like good, all good. And so we're talking to him beforehand, doing the prep. And We're like, yeah, you're on in the afternoon, and yep, you're on in the afternoon. He's like, no, no, I gotta go in the morning. Like, well, I mean, it's not in your contract. No, I need you in the afternoon. That's how the calendar. That's how it's going to work. Need you in the afternoon. So we kind of argued a little bit on it. He kind of folded and said, all right, I'll be on in the afternoon. Fast forward to the conference. Conference is going great. It's like 2 o'clock on the second day, and up goes the economist slash futurist on the stage. And I'm literally right near the stage because we're kind of coordinators of the meeting. And he gets up there and starts going. And all of a sudden, I'm like kind of watching him, and you can see he's kind of swaying a little bit. Like, well, I don't know. Maybe that's how he rolls. He's swaying a little bit. And while he's talking, I'm like, I talked to him on the phone a couple times. You don't sound right.
Oh
He's
no.
slurring. He's slurring. This guy,
Oh
and now I'm
no.
going, he's actually slurring. No, he's
Oh my
slurring.
gosh.
He's swaying and slurring. And now there was a rail up there, so he kind of like meandered over and kind of grabbed onto the rail, which slowed the swaying down. Oh, good. But the slurring wasn't going well. So at this point, I'm like, I'm kind of in a little bit of panic mode. So I'm like, I got choices here. I got a guy on stage who's drunk that we hired. At least that was Kane's. That was my kind of situational
Contribution.
analysis. And I came, then, it was about 15, 20 minutes in. I'm kind of reading the audience, and my read on the audience was half could tell he was drunk. The other half just thought he was just weird. That's how he rolls. It's kind of a mixed bag. At least that's kind of what my thoughts were. But I came at that moment, I was this close to climbing onto stage mid presentation, putting my arm around him, saying, one more round of applause for so and so, and kind of carting him off. The second half of his presentation, holding onto the rail helped. He got through his slides. Long story short is he was drunk. We obviously argued with the speakers bureau. It wasn't about the money. It was like, come on,
It was the lack of professionalism.
lack
It
of
was the fact
professionalism.
that the future is drunk.
So, so to this day, when we pick a speaker at ACE,
Oh
we're
my
always
gosh.
doing conferences. Someone always goes like, "Kane, do you want to do a futurist again? Do you want to find another drunk futurist?"
They
You
let
want to
you
hear this
have it, yeah.
the scary the best part of the story, and this is true, I swear you, 3 years later, I'm not in that job anymore. Another gentleman was in that role. 3 years later, that guy, that speaker called and asked for the vice president of retail operations and new business, got my person who took my job on the phone and said, "Hey, a couple things. I want to apologize and I want to thank you. I want to apologize because I was drunk. I was an alcoholic. Just so you know, since that day on that stage for 3 years, I've been sober. Haven't had a drink because I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to go in the afternoon because I was an alcoholic. You made me do it, but that's my fault." And he said he was dry for 3 years and said thank you and got off the phone. True story, which is like one of those like,
Wow. It's probably part of his steps also, I'm guessing,
I
is to
I would
acknowledge
assume,
and
yeah.
yeah. Now, before we get to our listener questions, let's stay up to date with the week in work. This is our take on recent trends in the workplace that are changing how we work or how we think about work life. Let's talk about AI, Kane. You probably remember an article that came out a little while ago when Walmart CEO Doug McMillan issued a wake up call about AI. You'd think retail stores like Walmart and Ace wouldn't be radically changed by AI, but at the time, a few months ago when it came out, it kind of caused a stir when he said that we all need to wake up to the fact that every employee's job will be affected, even if they're working on the floor in retail sales. He even went as far as to say, maybe there's a job AI won't change, but I can't think of it. I guess it just got me thinking, how do stores like Ace and Walmart utilize I mean, you're in the hardware business. How can AI, which is tech, change jobs in a literal nuts and bolts traditional setting?
We wear headsets in the store, so obviously they can say plumbing. They can direct people, make sure customers are taken care of. Well, now the headsets, we're changing that technology because now these headsets can actually listen into the conversation and proactively bring up the answer from the customer. So we're
Wow.
testing it. So, well, now there's legal, obviously, parameters there and whatnot, but the whole idea is like it can be listening into a conversation and kind of pulling up the knowledge database to give that answer. So it's whether it's a handheld, we got a thing called Hey Arma at Ace. There's a handheld opportunity, but even in these headsets, we think we can be feeding answers. Now, the associate may or may not need it, so they can kind of trigger that. But we think we can get them answers based on the conversations that's taking place.
Do you sort of agree with that sentiment that every job will be touched in some way by AI?
I would answer yes. Every job will be touched in some way. I think some departments will be impacted more than others. All these stories, I think some of them, they seem like they're overstated a little bit, but
Right.
we're challenging our team. We're going to have AI education. We're going to put Copilot on the computers of all the associates here because it just makes everything quicker. It's just
Right.
time savings. It's the things you can have it do for you. Now you have to proof it, you have to check it. It's your work when you send it out, but you can get a whole lot of great help from Copilot. But you think about legal, HR, finance, IT, of course. There's some areas that I think we really got to dive deep there because we do want to become more efficient. And it doesn't automatically mean cutting heads. It
Right.
could be just not having to add heads as we grow. We always say at ACE, and I think others have said this, our CEOs said, you're not going to lose your job to AI, but you're going to lose your job if you don't embrace AI. We want to put that in the minds of our teammates. Like, you can't shun it. We got to get you involved in it. It's gonna make everything you do more efficient once you learn how to use it. And we're doing it because we just every dollar we can save at Ace Harbor, we want to save a dollar.
Now it's time to go on a quick break. When we come back, we have a question from a listener who feels like they're going to get surprised by year end criticism in Q4, which is right about now. That definitely sounds like it's not in the holiday spirit. Am I right? Hey, quick break from AI. If you're enjoying Workplace Weirdness and you're thinking, wow, it's comforting to know other people's jobs are just as messy as mine, do us a favor. Follow the show, leave a review, or share this episode with the one coworker who would absolutely get it. New episodes drop every other Wednesday, and we've got more cringy emails, baffling bosses, and anonymous confessions coming your way. This is your safe space to laugh about the weird stuff work throws at you. Stay weird. Now, back to the episode. Welcome back to Workplace Weirdness. Before we get to our listener questions, I want to mention that if you have a workplace question, go to our website at workplace-weirdness.com and click on Share Your Story. We'd love to hear from you. I'm here with Ace Hardware's CHRO, Kane Calamari. Kane, we have a listener who is getting blindsided in their annual review. Let's check it out. Maya, my company just introduced a shiny new performance review system that's supposed to make everything more transparent and fair. Translation, my boss now depends on how well I guess what my boss secretly thinks of me. The problem, my manager barely gives feedback during the year. When I ask for it, I get the classic, you're doing fine, which in boss language apparently means wait until I surprise you with criticism in Q4. Then, when review season comes around, I get blindsided by criticism I never had a chance to work on. Now that money and career growth are on the line, every review feels like a high stakes gamble. How can I talk to my boss about this without sounding needy or defensive? From doing fine. This is what happens when managers aren't comfortable with or trained on how to build in ongoing feedback, in my opinion. How do you think this employee should handle this annual nightmare, Kane?
Yeah, this is the classic. It's the reason annual performance reviews are kind of a thing of the past for most companies because that all year happen. And at the end of the year, you find out what's going on. I think that person has every right and should talk to their boss and say, hey, can we sit down once a quarter just for 30 minutes? That's not too big of an ask. That's a very fair thing. And by the way, and if the boss isn't good about giving that feedback, that employee should feel comfortable asking for it, right? So, you might have to go into that meeting and say, probe the boss sometimes to get that feedback. But if you do it 4 times a year, at ACE, we went to quarterly kind of formal coaching conversations 4 times a year. I think that's been a big help because I hate to say this, we're forcing, for lack of a better term, leaders to sit down once a quarter with each of their teammates, their employees, and say, how are we doing? And what can I do to support you? We even give them, like, for those that need it, we give them, like, here's the questions to ask. Like, here's a guide for this quarter's conversation, which is not negative. Like, for some people, they want that crutch. On-field coaching should be happening, we say, a minimum of 12 times a year. And most leaders, you're doing on-field coaching a lot more than that. You're doing it in the hallway, you're doing it after a meeting. But for some people, we wanted to put out that marker of 4 formal conversations and a minimum of 12 on-field conversations. Just trying to force interaction so there's no surprises at the end of the year, which is exactly what your listener is feeling right now.
So, listener, thanks again for sending in the question because we've been hearing a lot about, changing feedback culture lately. You got to get those 4 sit downs in throughout the year, whatever you need to do to make that happen and make the boss listen. Thanks for sending in the question. Our next question is from a listener whose company is in the middle of an awkward company and culture fusion. Maya, I work for a mid sized logistics company with about 600 employees, and we recently merged with another company around the same size. On paper, it made sense. We do similar work and cover overlapping regions. But culturally, it's been an extremely bumpy transition. Our original team was scrappy, relationship driven, and informal, while the new group is very corporate and process heavy. Now every meeting feels like a standoff between this is how we've always done it and that's the old way. Morale's slipping, people are leaving, and no one's sure what culture we're supposed to be following. How can I not lose my mind or my job in this new cultural minefield? Kane, any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really big challenge. And obviously, anytime companies are going through acquisitions or whatnot, you're going to have that. But those leaders have got to, I think, take control of the situation and sit down, understanding that there's clearly disparate cultures. What are we doing going forward? What are our combined values? What's our mission? What's our purpose? Because you had two sets of them, and going forward, if you only won one set, hopefully it's a little bit of give and take. Like, well, let's follow what they had for their values and this mission and these goals. But you got to bring people to the table and let them know. The leader's got to say, one company going forward, one company. We're done with this battling and this arguing and all of this. We've got to march together in lockstep. I think the leadership group there's really got to take a firm but positive stance on that.
Yeah, I think that you're right. I think that's probably a symptom of leadership not taking a firm stand one way or the other or trying to hash out their own kind of tensions. It is really difficult, by the way. Merging companies always, I think, and cultures can have these effects, and sometimes people leave because they don't know where they stand. I'm thinking just for this specific person, though, who's writing in, what they can do kind of to improve their everyday. I think it's about trying to form new relationships with the people who they don't know. Make some of those more human connections so that maybe the processes will find their way to smoothen out a little bit.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add, I think you're the building relationships. At some point, they've got to build relationships, and sometimes leadership assimilation sessions, I think, are really good ways to get to know people. Ours, it's pretty simple. Basically, when I joined HR, I was from the outside, a non-HR person. It was like, holy cow, who is this monster? So I come into a room, they're all in there. I introduce myself, talk for a few minutes. You leave the room, and then they write on a board any question they want to ask Kane. It's on a board. It's anonymous. And they write, I mean, there had to be 85 questions on this board. And it could be about my family, about there's no,
Wow, I
nothing's
like
off
this.
limits. And I come back in an hour later and I got to tackle that board in front of that group. And you know what? We have fun. They get to know me. It breaks down a lot of barriers. It's not perfect, but I got to know the team. I got to know kind of what they wanted to know about me. Some of it was work, some was family, some was why are you in HR? It was great questions on that board.
It's I think the first time I've heard of a leadership assimilation session, and I hope that people hear it and possibly assimilate it into their organization. And now, every week we cover one question addressing the kind of cringeworthy work event that'll make you want to never be the hot topic in the office chat rooms. This week's cringeworthy question comes from an employee who slacked a message talking trash. Ugh, that already makes me feel a little cringy. Let's take a look. I currently work as a sales rep at my company. Earlier this week, I was on a joint end of year meeting with our entire sales and marketing team. I've been with this company for 3 years now, and since joining, there's always been some tension between our two teams. Both teams are convinced they know what our customers want, leading to constant disagreements over the best approach. It's easy to get sucked into this kind of workplace drama. Occasionally, some of the other sales reps and I will complain about one particular person on the marketing team on Slack. Well, during this last meeting, I had to share my screen for a portion of a presentation. Long story short, I accidentally shared my Slack screen, and the entire sales and marketing team saw me and two other sales reps talk trash about a particular person on the marketing team. The message said, "Who let X make the final call on this?" They're completely out of touch with reality. It's honestly embarrassing at this point. I was absolutely mortified, and boy, did I learn my lesson to have these kinds of conversations outside of workplace systems. Both teams saw this message. My manager wants me to pretend like it didn't happen. He said that everyone knows about the tension between the two teams and he didn't want to amplify it. but part of me feels like I need to apologize to this person on the marketing team. I don't want to have a bad relationship with this person. What should I do? So I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I want to say that I've done similar to this, not exactly this, but I've made the mistake of being on a Zoom call and saying something to somebody that went to everyone rather to just that person that I wanted to say it to. And it was super embarrassing.
Yeah, the technology stuff nowadays, it's like you got to be so who's copied on an email, replied all. This can happen. It happened. That, by the way, that person obviously wasn't comfortable with the message. That could have been a lot worse, by the way, with the way we move on communication. So, as a company, it's like, why are we complaining about each other on a Slack? Like, why don't we talk about it? Actually, bring it forward if there's an issue. If it's not a personal attack, if it's like work wise, somebody take control of the situation and get to the bottom of it. And so, but now that the cat's out of the bag, that the message has been seen, obviously apologizing for it is a fair thing to do. It's hard to argue that. But then from a work standpoint, what are we doing to make that team better? Because there's some dysfunction in that team based on the little I heard. So
I
the question,
mean, the biggest dysfunction is that the manager said to act like nothing happened.
yeah, well,
Come
there's
on,
that.
that's
There's
so
yeah,
silly.
that's, yeah, the old
Let's just
the
pretend
Oscar.
nothing happened. I mean, this big dramatic thing happened. I think the worst advice is to pretend that nothing happened. I completely agree with you. I think I hope this person doesn't feel like they're going against their manager if they apologize, but they should apologize. They need to be the bigger person. They have to say, "Hey, that was not cool of us. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry you had to see that." And you know what? For what it's worth, maybe it'll even start the conversation that needed to happen like months ago. About how we get along. To your point, Kane.
And I think you said like act like nothing happened is like that's just a brilliant display of weak leadership. Like there's nothing weaker than that. That is like I really don't want to deal with it. Make it go away. It's not my thing, and it's just that's sad. That person should be coached by the leader above them because when something like this happens, the last thing we want to do is put our head in the sand, right? We want to address it. We got to figure it out. It's out there. People are talking about it. It happened, and so hoping it goes away is so weak that that's disappointing. That's just not it's a terrible sign of leadership.
I couldn't have said it better. Bottom line. Listener, I hope you're able to be the bigger person and apologize. And maybe for what it's worth, this may start the change that you need to see in your teams. That's my feeling. That's our show for today, Kane. Let me take this chance to wish everyone happy holidays, a cozy winter season, and a happy new year. I want to mention Kane is also on the board of Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, which raises money for children's hospitals around the country. It's nice that you find time to do community work like supporting children's healthcare as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, just real quick on that, it's been around for 40 plus years, and they basically are a fundraising organization that supports 170 children's hospitals in Canada and the US. ACE has been partners with them for over 30 years. And the beauty is our money that's raised locally in stores around the country goes to that local hospital. So you fast forward the 30 plus years ACE has been fundraising for them. We've raised about $250 million to help kids. And it's part of our culture. It's our energy. The corporate folks love raising money for kids. The distribution center folks, our retailers, our vendors. So we kind of rally around it every year and have a lot of fun helping kids.
Yeah, it's specifically, around this time of year when it's, the holidays and almost New Year. It's just a really wonderful way to give back. I think it's great that you have that added layer of giving built in. I want to thank you, Kane, for coming here today and sharing your passion for how a people facing business can succeed despite AI, online, and big store competition. If you've got some weirdness in the workplace, please go to our website at workplace-weirdness.com and click on Share Your Story. We might feature your question in an upcoming episode. This is Maya Kadar Kowalski reminding you to embrace the quirks and make the most out of the office chaos. In the meantime, keep working and whenever possible, stay weird. Today's show is produced by me, Maya Kadar Kowalski, and Felicia Wang, and written by Dana Burnell Lowe. Molly Citram is our content curator. Ohad Salmon is our strategist, and Barry Rowan is our digital media specialist. Thank you to our production partners at Podify. Also, thanks to you for listening to Workplace Weirdness. Make sure you're subscribed to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back next time in 2026 for another breakdown of all things weird from a workplace near you.